So, Minister, you've heard from this whānau that these parents who have got a house full of children, including their nieces and their nephew, that they're feeling very hurt and scapegoated, and they feel like that their experience has kind of been weaponised, that their voice has been marginalised.
What I'll say to you is every decision I'm making since I've been a minister is around the care and the safety of our young people. And I'll never apologise for that.
Well, no one would expect you to. That's your job.
But what I can say is this happened pre-me. And I was not happy when I saw those young kids being traumatised and ripped out of a home and put into a home where they were unknown. And that should never have happened.
So now that you know that they're in a home where they're loved, they're warm, they're safe...
I've never said they were not loved and not warm and not safe. Does this make you
rethink your assumptions around the work of 7AA?
That should never have happened in the first place. Reverse uplift should not happen. If a young person is safe, happy and been there for years, this should never happen. A reverse uplift should not happen.
So that's a very pat phrase to use when people are dealing with some quite traumatising issues, some deep issues. What is it that is driving you? And I know what you're saying, that you're committed, but there's no data, there's no evidence. There are different reports that have come out that question your push to get rid of 7AA. Is it just purely ideological?
Look, I want to make sure that children are safe. And if we have a piece of legislation that in any way, even if it's 1 or 2 children, that's too many. But I've heard way more. I've had over 100 emails come into my office with stories where they're too scared to come forward, too scared to speak because of the backlash that does come their way. Now, I'm not going to sit and apologise for putting safety first. 7AA has confused the situation where we've had a practice shift that is not safe for anybody, not safe for our kids, not safe for our caregivers, and not safe for the whānau either. We need to be doing better within Oranga Tamariki, and I want their practice to change so that our young people are safe.
Part of your campaign around 7AA is suggesting that children are being placed in situations where they're at risk, where their safety is compromised. So that particular story, you quoted that in one of your messages.
It's bad practice, yes.
Yeah, so what was the bad practice?
The bad practice is if there was family out there, they should have placed those children with those family in the first place. And I don't deny that that family has probably been through hell and back too. The bad practice was, if you are going to place them with whānau, make sure you place them with whānau. Don't leave them 2 or 3 years in a home where they're settled, where they've got connections, where they're loved, and then uplift them for no other reason than we've finally found whānau. And we can't put these children through these reverse uplifts when they've created an environment where they're safe and happy.
So what's that got to do with removing Section 7AA?
We need to put the best interests and the safety of the young people at the very front of all our decision
making. What makes you think that isn't being put? Are you questioning the professionalism of your staff?
Yes, some bad practice and lazy social work practice that use 7AA as an excuse sometimes to just place a young person with whānau because that's the easiest thing to do. We need to make sure that safety and best interests come first. I want all our children to be thriving and to be safe and not to be hurt and harmed.
But you're conflating 2 different issues. You're suggesting that being placed with whānau, being in a culturally appropriate situation, it compromises safety.
No,
that's what you're suggesting.
I think that whakapapa, whānau, hapu and iwi are important, but children must have those in a positive situation, not be placed into homes where they could be hurt or harmed.
But where's your evidence that that's happening? Where's your evidence that's happening? In that particular case, which we watched, the children are in a very warm, stable family, in a big, spacious house. They're engaged with their culture, they're loved, they're safe. So they're saying that Section AA has been an enabler that has enabled them to restore those connections, that OT finally did the right thing.
Actually, those young people were placed with a family that loved them, cared for them, and 3 years later they were taken from that home, and the only reason is they found whānau years later. I mean, that should have happened in the first place.
That should have happened.
That should have happened in the first place.
That's right. So
but
now
the damage,
Section AA...
the damage that was done to those caregivers, to those children, through that transition period should never have happened.
So what engagement have you had with that family? What engagement have you had with that family?
That is not my place to have engagement with that family.
But you've used them as part of a campaign. That's why they're feeling pretty traumatised and scapegoated.
No, I've used court cases as evidence of reverse uplifts.
I watched the footage of a reverse uplift.
I did watch the footage, and it was very traumatic to watch those children.
In your text, I watched the footage of a reverse uplift where 4 young siblings were taken crying, traumatised, blah, 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 discovered a more culturally appropriate relative and unknown to the children at the end of the country. You've said that children have been removed from safe, loving foster homes because the children's foster parents were the wrong race.
Yep, and that's what those parents were told.
Happened.
That's what those caregivers were told.
That's not what happened.
And the fact of the matter is, that is the truth.
They were reconnected with their whānau.
They were removed from a safe, loving home because they found a more culturally appropriate home.
Are you insinuating that they're not in a safe, loving home now?
No, but that case should never have happened.
Why do you think that? Why did you assume that they weren't going to be safe with that relative?
When we have situations where I'm watching a show where kids are traumatically removed from a safe, loving home, that should never have happened. Reverse uplift should never be happening. OT needs to be better at their practice. That harmed many people. That harmed the children, that harmed the whānau, that harmed the caregivers, that harmed everybody, and that should not be happening.
So just to be very clear, we've interviewed the whānau, the auntie and uncle, and they report that the kids are thriving, they're happy, they're engaged, they're learning te reo, they're loving being around other children, because these parents whāngai other children as well. So doesn't that demonstrate that 7AA is working well? And what did that make you question your assumptions?
Look, we've had over 2,600 submissions to the Select Committee. The Select Committee is going through them right now. I want the conversation to be when social workers are making decisions around placements for our young people, that they're taking the safety and the well-being of those young people first and foremost.
Why are you assuming they're not? Because Section 4A
over and over again
absolutely puts that as a priority.
Because I hear over and over again
where's your
where
evidence?
that is not happening.
My
job as an MP is to listen to people in our community, to listen to people who are coming to me and telling me this was a problem. I saw it before coming into Parliament. I promised I would change this, and I'm just following through on what I promised those people who came to me, who said the way they were being treated and what was happening was wrong, and it was affecting children, it was affecting caregivers, and it was affecting whānau.
I understand that, Minister. So now we have an opportunity with Section 7AA for the Ministry to develop those strategic partnerships and to grow a better culture. So
and those
why get rid of it?
strategic partnerships are not going to stop. They started before 7AA and they will continue after 7AA.
So why not just keep 7AA?
Because 7AA is making social workers fear-making decisions in case they're accused of being racist for removing a young person from an unsafe home, and they may not be making the right decisions.
Some of the follow-up reports, of course, pointed out that there's been structural and institutional racism, which has meant that more Māori children have gone through the pipeline, gone through interstate care and out the other side. 7AA is a way to build those strategic relationships to try and reduce those disparities. So why are you so against it?
And I will continue to say, and I've said it over again, strategic partnerships will continue where they are working for our young people. I'm already meeting with Ngāpuhi and meeting with other iwi around how they can be more involved with the decision making around their young people within their iwi. What I want to make sure is that when we are looking at that they are safe decisions for our young people. Whether they be Māori, non-Māori, any ethnicity, safety and well-being has to come first.
Absolutely, and Section 4A of the Act insists that that is a paramount consideration.
And this is why I've had a full Select Committee process, full consultation process, not rushing anything through. This is to have the discussion around the practice when we are placing our young people. Safety and well-being must come first.
So your own regulatory impact report suggests that Section AA is not contributing to the harm. The Waitangi Tribunal, of course, has said that changes could be harmful. So why not go with evidence?
Oranga Tamariki can't give evidence whether Section 7AA was making a difference either way because they didn't keep the data. data. So to say they don't have the evidence isn't actually correct. They didn't collect the data to be able to have the evidence.
Your officials spoke in the tribunal.
Yeah, and my officials also know that I've set the expectation that safety and wellbeing come first. I have been told over and over again about the reverse uplifts, and not just that, around the decision making, where race comes before safety and wellbeing and decision making.
It doesn't say in section 7AA that race. It doesn't even mention.
7AA
doesn't
was
mention
well
race.
intended. I've never said it wasn't well intended, but the way it is interpreted around the country is different. Let's make sure that safety and wellbeing is the very first thing that social workers are thinking about when they're making placements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.